Alright, hey boys and girls, this is a introduction and review for graphing and data and the kinds of graphing and charts, things that we're going to be looking at in this unit. So to start with, we're going to start with one of the more familiar types of graphs that you've seen before, and they're called bar graphs. They're called bar graphs because the way we look at it visually, we see these bars, okay? Now there's two kinds of bar graphs. One is vertical, and it's just because the bars are going straight up and down or vertical. The other kind is horizontal, and it's called horizontal because now our bars, if you look, are going in a horizontal direction or side to side, this way. Key things to look for whenever you're looking at a bar graph or creating your own. You're going to need a lot of different features, okay? The first thing that you're going to see in both of these bar graphs is our title, okay? You're always going to find your title at the top of a graph. It doesn't matter what kind of bar graph you're looking at. It will always be at the top. The other thing to look for is a scale. A scale is equal measurements for whatever data you collected, okay? So in this case, I pretended that we took a survey of the different kinds of pets we have in our classroom, dog, cat, and fish. So what we would do is collect our data, having people tell us what kind of pet they have, and then we would calculate it. Now notice our scale is going by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Even though we don't have anyone with 2 or 10, you have to have your scale go in equal increments. So you need to be counting by 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s, 100s, whatever your data kind of guides towards you. And we'll talk more about that. But your scale cannot go 1, 3, 10, 50. Okay, that wouldn't make very much sense when you look at it visually. So this is our scale here in green. It's our quantity or number that we have collected in our data. The other thing you're going to look at is what is in blue, okay? And this is just simply what is the data you're collecting. In this case, we were looking at pets, okay? We might look at how far we can jump. Those would be the data you're collecting. Okay, and lastly, in red, you're going to see labels. And all a label does is tell you what you're looking at. What do these numbers mean? Well, they mean the number of people that have that pet. So I need to label that for someone else that's looking at the data. Down here, what's a dog, cat, and fish? Well, it's our pets. So I need to label it pets. Okay? All this does is give us information so that we can read the bar graph and understand the data that we're looking at. The other thing to know is that we have axes when we deal with bar graphs. Okay? The one that's going vertical up and down is called a y-axis, and the one going across horizontally is the x-axis. You could remember that by going x, y, like x, y, z. Okay? The next type, one that you've also probably seen before, is called a pictograph. Now it kind of sounds the way it looks. It uses a picture, like pictograph, or it could use symbols. In this case, I've used the symbol of a triangle. It usually has a key, so keep in mind whenever you see a pictograph that this triangle does not necessarily represent just one. You have to look for the key. Here my key tells me that one triangle equals 2 people, okay? And I know that it's people by looking at my label here, number of people. So I can figure out how many people have a dog by counting each triangle as 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8. I now know that there are 8 dogs, and so on. You can do the same thing for fish. 2, 4, 6 people have fish. The trickiest part about a pictogram is if you do not follow the key and that you don't pay attention to this and count each one as 1, okay? Because if I did that, then I would think that there are 3 people that have fish as pets, but we know from our other bar graph and using this key that really 6 people have fish. So it's very important to pay attention to your key in a pictograph. The other two that we're going to look at on this one are 2 different kinds of tables. Now, a table is different from a graph in that there's nothing visual for me to look at. I'm just looking at tallies and numbers. And this kind of table is called a tally table because all I've done is take the data that I'm collecting and tally how many people have this pet. So let's pretend that we're in class and I say, raise your hand if you have a dog. We would look around the room, and for every hand we see, we would make a tally. Okay? So here's the same data as before, but in a tally format. The other is called a frequency, and all the word frequency means is how often does something reoccur. So you might think things that you do very frequently would be eat, sleep, come to school, things like that. Things that you would do not very frequently would be celebrate your birthday or go on a vacation to the beach, things like that. So this is the same thing as a tally table, only we use numbers. So instead of tallying each person, we would look around the room and count up to 8 and just simply write that number, 8. Okay, so that's the simple difference between a tally table and a frequency table. All right, and finally is a line plot. You'll see many of these as we move forward, especially as we move into more of these mode and range, median type words. A line plot, all it is a line. You see that here? Kind of like a number line. And then at the bottom, you're going to see data or numbers. And here I've changed it up on you, so kind of get rid of the pet idea, and we're going to start a new kind of data. My title is Movies Watched This Year. So I pretended to go out and collect data from people to see how many movies they watched so far this year. The options were 5 movies, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Notice that my scale down here is counting up in equal increments of 5, okay? So for each X, that means that a person watched 5 movies. If you look here, 10, I have 4 X's. That means 4 people watched 10 movies. 15, you notice I have 5 X's. That means 5 people have watched 15 movies. So on and so forth. So each X in this example represents one person, okay? And this is a line plot. You always want to be sure that when you're creating these yourself, that you're making your X's on each row be at the same level, okay? And it'll be easier for you to figure out the mode and answer lots of questions. So just be sure you're very neat when you create a line plot. Okay, questions we can answer looking at this data would be mode. The word mode wants you to figure out which occurred most often, and an easy way to kind of remember it is the MO in mode sounds like most, MO. So you're looking for which one happened most. So how many movies did most people already watch this year? Well, if I look at my data, I see that 15 has the most X's. So in this case, the mode would be 15. Most people watched at least 15 movies so far this year. The range, you're going to look at the largest data number and subtract it from the smallest data number. So in this line plot, my largest data number, and all of your data numbers are on the bottom number line. They're not up here, okay? So you want to look down here for the range. My largest is 30. That's the most number of movies someone could have watched. So I'm going to look at that one. Now I want to find the smallest number of movies someone could have watched in this data, and it would be 5. All I'm going to do is subtract the 2. So I'm going to say 30 movies minus 5 movies gives me a range of 25 movies. All this means is that between 5 and 30, there were 25 movies total that someone could have watched. So largest data number minus the smallest gives you the range of data you're looking at. Other things that they might ask you with a line plot and any other kinds of graph are the questions like this. How many people watched movies this year? Well, what do you suppose I should do? Probably count up all of my X's since I know that this represents people. So if I count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I know that 16 people watched movies, at least in this data, because that means I asked 16 people this question. How many people watched more than 15 movies? Well, should I include 15? No, because it tells me more than 15. So I would just look at 20 through 30 to figure out how many people watched 20 movies, 25 movies, or 30 movies, since all of these numbers are greater than 15. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'll just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people watched more than 15 movies so far this year. Okay? Easy enough, and we'll do some more in class.